Rockdale year. In fact, I have a guest joining me this evening, and we're going to talk about the ever-morphing courthouse project tonight, because things are happening. The wool is slowly being pulled from over our eyes, and we're going to dig into that tonight. If you're watching the replay, skip ahead a few minutes, watch the rest of the show. We're going to jump to a countdown to give people a chance to tune in. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. All right. What is up, guys? January 27th was the last live show I did on this channel. And unfortunately, it's time to do another one. We'll get into why. I'm joined tonight, though, by the host of This Week from Rockdale, Larry Cox. What's going on, Larry? How you doing, brother?
Hell, I'm doing good tonight. I'm here with you this evening. We're going to talk about, unfortunately, some things that you and I have predicted over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, these I'm trying to get these comments sorted out so that they can, because I haven't used this system in a long time, and all these comments are all weird. The formatting is all weird. I'm not thrilled by them, and whatever, they'll manage. If you comment, it'll come up on the screen. It might just look a bit funky. It's good to be back. Well, maybe under other circumstances, not particularly these. Larry, we're here to talk about the courthouse. Well, I say courthouse like it's a courthouse anymore. We're here to talk about the
with a side of courthouse.
Yeah, we're here to talk about the admin boondoggle and quite frankly, the truth about this project is slowly coming to light, and it's exactly what we thought it was going to be. It's exactly what we predicted. But let's go back in time. First of all, before we talk about what we now know, let's go back in time and talk about what we've already experienced here. What was it, 2018? This was first proposed, right, Larry?
Yes, it was.
2018, they came to the voters and said, hey, fellas, give us $140 million so that we can build a shiny new building and put Oz Nesbitt's name on it. And the voters of Rockdale said, no, you're absolute useless. They are not good stewards of our money. If you don't believe me, let's hear it from our finance director.
The financial literacy of this board is not where it should be.
It's our former finance director, I should say. The financial literacy of this board is not where it should be. And so we voted down a $140 million boondoggle that over, at the time, I think they were proposing 20 years, Larry? I can't remember.
Yeah,
I think at the time they were saying it was going to be 20 years, and they gave a percentage.
They were doing general obligation bonds, which would have actually at that time been a lower interest rate than what revenue bonds are.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that because a lot of new information has come to light. So we voted that down, and it went away for a little bit. And Larry and I, we sat here and said, it's not gone. It's not dead. They're going to find a way to do this. And so they did. They introduced this PFA legislation. It was passed behind our backs, and it established a board, five members?
5 members.
5-member board with the authority to issue revenue bonds for, we were told, a $110 million project. Now, why did it suddenly go down to 110 from 140, you might wonder? Well, at the time with the 140, I went through the county finances, and they were restricted by state law. They were restricted on the amount of money they could borrow, and they were capped at the time it was $140 million. I haven't gone through the finances this time, but I'm willing to wager that the $110 million is the statutory cap on what they're able to borrow currently, and they're going to borrow all the way up to their available credit limit. But $110 million, we were told. In fact, let's go back to January, an email exchange I had with Sue Sanders. I see the master plan and concepts have been published. It's interesting that all but one of the concepts exceed the $110 million budget. Even the concept that comes in at 108.5 is dangerously close to the $110 million budget. So tell me what happens when you inevitably run into problems. How are we going to fund change orders, overages, etc.? The PFA is authorized to issue 110 in bonds. Will the rest be additional new taxes? Sue Sanders responded to this, pointing me to page 40 of the master plan, or whatever it is. Page 40 says, below a rough order of magnitude cost estimates for each concept. Once detailed design begins, the cost estimates will be more developed to achieve the project cost of $110 million. What does that tell you this project is going to cost?
It tells you it's going to cost 110.
It tells you it's going to cost 110. Let's take a look at a video from last night's PFA meeting.
So the preferred plan of the task force is what you see above, and that was the layout. This particular layout includes the movement of Milstead Avenue. So next slide is the alternate plan. If the traffic study determines and also talks with the city, determine that moving the street is not in the best interest, this is the alternate layout. New courthouse is 95,000 square feet. New administration building, 81,000. Renovation of existing courts is about 54,000. Parking deck is 240 spaces, which is expandable to add another layer on should it be needed.
With a construction budget at 100.
Let me skip back there.
Parking deck is
Look at those costs, Larry.
Yeah.
Construction budget approximately 110 million. Overall project budget 140 million. Sue Sanders, in her email, all but confirmed that it was to cost 110 million. It's now up to 140, the exact same 140 that they came after the last time.
But it's up to 140, Alex. But I heard talk last night.
Well, let's watch the rest of this video.
Yeah, I heard talk.
It's 240 spaces, which is expandable to add another layer on should it be needed.
With a construction budget at 110 million, that suffices for both options. One where you move Milstead and one where you don't.
So we don't have all the information back on Milstead. That would suffice for if we did a passageway, a pedestrian passageway. But we expect that the road movement would be more expensive, but we don't know how much more yet.
The construction budget is 110. That's hard construction dollars to a construction contractor.
Construction contractor.
Doesn't include the soft costs like the architectural fees.
No, it doesn't include things like technology, audio, visual, furnishings.
Furnishings.
Yeah, and
And
then we
that's
also, subsurface issues, there is contingency built in for that because we have testing, but once we start really digging, then we'll, we're not sure exactly what we're running into, but we're still in the testing phase.
So the one.
We'll get back to that in a second, Larry. There are already, the project manager in me is already seeing red flags here.
Alex, we both have done this. We both have managed. We know, you and I both know, they're not telling us the true cost. There's other things they're not saying they're going to have to do. You and I, these are numbers that you and I have talked about in the past. I've always said $200 to $220 million.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a real number.
Well, and here's the thing. These are the red flags that I'm seeing already. Red flag number one, they just simply don't know what it's going to cost. They don't know how much. She just admitted there they've no idea how much they're going to be spending on infrastructure. They don't know how much it's going to cost to relocate a road. They don't know what they're going to run into underground. And you and I have talked extensively about the underground infrastructure in Old Town, the storm and sewer and water systems there. They are going to run into nightmares. The age of that infrastructure, being able to access it, being able to replace that stuff, they are going to run into some major problems. And she just said right there, we don't know. They have a contingency built in, but it obviously it's built in beyond the 110 million that we were told this was going to cost. Now we're being told 140. So somewhere in that additional 30 million, I assume is their contingency for infrastructure issues that they are going to run into, plain and simple. They absolutely are. Every project does, especially a project built on rock. So then she says it doesn't include technology, doesn't include furnishings, doesn't include everything you need in order to be able to operate.
It's just a shell building is all the 110 gets you.
And when
it gets you a shell building.
Yeah, when we're talking about technology, we're talking about phone systems. We're talking about computer systems, all of the IT infrastructure. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars in costs that aren't included there. Those are red flags I see immediately. Let's continue.
The 140 versus the 110, that includes order 30 million. That includes the soft costs,
Yes.
architectural fees, the interest during the construction period.
Everything,
of
escalation
it.
costs for all phases.
Yeah.
It's fully inclusive of all of that,
Okay.
yes.
Now-
the movement of the Millstead.
She says it's fully inclusive of all that without knowing what the costs are going to be. We just heard from Director Saunders that she has no idea what infrastructure costs are going to be. She doesn't know what technology costs are going to be, doesn't know what furnishings are going to cost. I don't know what it costs to kit out a courtroom in this day and age. They floated a number the last time around. I don't recall what it was, but again, it was in the millions of dollars. But it's not just the courtrooms we got to outfit, it's everything. It's all this new office space. Every single thing is going to have to be outfitted.
Well, your metal detectors, Al?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a lot of specialized security
Yes.
devices
Some-
that are not cheap.
We're talking about very high dollar items that she said they don't know what it's going to cost. Let's keep going.
What that would bring it to the 140. So I'm just confused at why we're considering the movement of the Millstead if it's not a part of the 110. Is it between the 110 and the 140?
No, that is not included, but we don't have a final cost on that. So if that was
Oh, so it's not 140. It's after showing after first of all telling us it was going to be 110 million, then showing this presentation, and you notice she listed everything but didn't list the costs. It was the members of the PFA that jumped in and said, "Oh, hold on a second. That says $140 million." It was them that raised it. And now we're being told, "Oh yeah, no, that 140 doesn't even include the infrastructure cost of the roads." Listen, Larry, I've only been in this business 30 years. But can you remind me how important the roads actually are to a development like this?
They're the number one priority to any development is
they're
access.
pretty important, right?
Access is the number one thing you have to have access and utilities.
Pretty
right?
important. And yet Sue Sanders, who is I shit you not, the project manager of this boondoggle, doesn't have an answer yet on what it's going to cost to relocate the road.
Well, Alex, I have concerns about somebody who moves from being the director of animal control to the position she has now.
Listen, I don't know, but I would imagine that Director Sanders has gotten some project management certifications since we last spoke. And
Can I tell you something now?
go on.
I'm not a betting guy. I don't bet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I will bet you the answer to that is no.
Well, I don't know the answer to
I
it.
would say
There's
answer to that.
There's
no.
a phone number on the screen. If Director Sanders wants to call in, she's welcome to.
I want to see that diploma.
But it's feasible that she's gotten some project management certifications that just simply left out the importance of roads. But it happens. Sometimes little things get missed. What I will say is the KMT have hired a project management team who are working on this project. Director Sanders, I guess, is running it, and this team is, I'm assuming, answering to her. I don't know. Anyway, the red flags just keep on waving. Let's keep watching.
was the option that was chosen, the commissioners would have to determine how to fund that. As you know, the cap for the PFA is 110,
Yes.
and the cap for the SPLOST is 19.6.
Yes.
And then we also, Mr. Corbin's going to talk about the split in the funding. But if that was the option that was chosen, the commissioners would need to determine with our financial advisor the funding. So this does not build in the movement of the road. But again, we don't know how much it would cost because we're still in the early stages.
How soon would we find that or have that information?
We should have that in early January. We're working on that, yes. And then we plan to meet with the city. They know that we're waiting on that as well.
So would that be a cost?
So in early January, we should know what it's going to cost to move the road, but we don't know it right now. They just want the PFA to move forward and vote to approve the issuance of these bonds, but we don't know what it's going to cost the taxpayer at the end of the day right now. They're floating $140 million, but that's a soft 140 million because it doesn't include a lot of things right now.
They just want the 110 to get started.
Yeah.
And then they're just going to tax us to death.
Yeah.
And then they're going to go in and pilfer more SPLOST money.
Yeah.
Now what I love about this is the exact same money that when we said, well, let's use SPLOST. Well, you can't touch that sacred cow because we won't be able to buy police cars. We won't be able to buy fire trucks. And Lord God, we won't be able to keep the 700 parks that Rockdale County has that nobody goes to open.
Yeah.
That's what we were told.
How are we possibly going to save people's burning homes if we take the SPLOST money to build a courthouse?
That's what they said.
And what are they doing?
Said that.
Yeah. And what are we doing now? We're taking the money to build, or taking some money, and with the option to take more SPLOST money in the future.
They said that. Take more in the future.
There's only one reason to say that, and that's because you know it's going to cost more than $140 million. They know already it's going to. Let's keep going.
I know, but they actually said they actually in there said that, to take money for overruns, and then also they could use the SPLOST money to help pay the bond.
Right. Let's keep going.
Cost versus versus the tunnel cost, because the difference is the cost of the tunnel versus rerouting the street.
So the cost of the tunnel is approximately 3.3 million, and it's built into the 140.
If it can go down, we would like to see that happen, obviously.
The county and
Here's what I wanted to include that in this, because, all right, I want to make it clear. Nothing we say tonight is having a go at the members of the PFA board. Nothing. I think for the most part, they showed last night that they want to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, because that's what we're talking about at the end of the day here is taxpayer money. I think I think their intentions are honorable in this instance. And they're somewhat limited in what they can do here. Their only job is to issue bonds. Their job isn't to manage the project. Their job isn't to control costs. None of that falls under their purview. And yet they're saying, if we can save money, we need to save money. It's falling on deaf ears. I can tell you this much.
I think they actually stepped out of their bounds last night.
We'll get to that when we get to the end of the video. But I think they fully intend to be good stewards of the citizens' money, but that's beyond their purview. And it's a shame, but they don't have any control over that. That's purely down to the county, how the money gets spent and how they either waste it or otherwise.
The legislation clearly states the only function of the PFA is to issue the bonds.
Yeah, issue the bonds and handle the repayment.
They actually don't have the authority to probably. All the questions they were asking were great questions.
But it was way beyond the scope of their beyond the scope of their authority. Let's keep going.
Authority issue. The county and authority intend to issue debt to fund the judicial and admin complex, which is currently estimated to cost $140 million. And you can see the scope of project summarized here. Now, the funding strategy will include money from sales tax receipts, which was already voter approved and collection is underway. And we also have the issuance of revenue bonds by the PFA, which is what we'll be discussing today.
140 is the estimated cost. I see 110 in bonds. SPLOST is 20. That's 130. Where's the other 10?
The difference will be coming from the county. And we do also expect that these bonds may trade above face value at a premium, so you'll be getting, more than the 110.
Okay, thank you.
Depending on market conditions.
And where is the county pulling this 10 million? Where is that coming from?
General fund, I believe.
Can I just repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, okay. 10 million is coming from the county's pocket, right?
Correct.
So that's coming from the general fund?
I want to correct that real quick. All 140 million is coming from the taxpayer, including the 10 million. It's coming from none of it is coming out of the county's pocket.
And the 19 million, all of it's coming from
Every
taxpayers.
penny, including all the overages that we are going to run into for all the reasons we've already stated. Every penny is coming out of the taxpayers' pockets. And I say that because accuracy is important. Transparency is important. The PFA aren't paying any of these bills. The county aren't paying any of these bills. We, the taxpayers, are paying every single one of these bills. Let's keep going.
It's coming from fund balance, that's the general
Fund
fund.
balance.
That's exactly right. So,
So what does that do with your borrowing, your ratios and all that stuff? Doesn't it affect
if you
your
recall,
financial condition, if you will?
absolutely, that's a very good question, Vice Chair. The tax has actually been levied already. The millage rate was increased. This is the second year that it would have been put in place.
So we have 10 million already
That's
collected.
That's correct. It's already collected and it's been.
Is that in a separate bank account,
It is.
Madam CFO? Okay.
It's reserved within the fund balance for this particular project.
Okay, reserve in the fund balance is different from being in a bank account.
Well, all of our money is in a local government investment pool or with various banks.
So in addition to the maximum borrowing amount of $110 million, the final maturity on the bonds issued cannot exceed 40 years. So the payments for the debt service will, as you explained, be coming from the county, and that's going to be coming from, as David alluded to earlier, the property taxes that were already approved and will be set aside for this explicit purpose.
I swear to God, these people talk like it's their own money. The payment for the debt service will be coming from the county. It won't, folks. It's coming from us, the taxpayer. I wish these damn civil servants and bureaucrats, I wish they would treat us with the respect we're entitled when it comes to issues like this. The money's coming from us. Sorry, I had to say it again.
Well, Alex, and they talked about fund balance, right?
Yeah.
So, there was a few years ago, there was a big controversy.
By the way, all that means is their bank account.
Yeah. Well, fund balance is actually, because I wanted a definition. So I actually did an open records request to the state legislature to find out exactly what that meant as far as for Rockdale County, if they had a savings account and all this and all that. And this is what information I got back from the legislature at that time, that, they don't have a savings account and that the fund balance is only, this is what this means. It is the amount of money that is on hand after all debt and bills
All
are
bills
paid.
have been paid. Yeah.
Okay, but let me tell you, Alex, the fund balance can be negative or positive.
Yeah, you can be in overdraft.
It can be in the fund balance. Just because you say you have fund balance, that's a play on words. That's making people believe that they have this savings account that they don't have.
Yeah. For all we know, 8 of that $10 million just got spent buying up a piece of property that Quick Trip wanted.
On Sigmund Load.
For all we know, a fund balance could quite easily be in the negative. You could easily be overdrawn.
You could easily have negative fund balance as easily as you have a positive fund balance. Fund balance is just the amount of money on hand after all debts are serviced.
Yeah,
and it could be positive or negative after all debts are serviced.
Yeah, because they came up with $8 million from somewhere to buy that piece of property. I didn't see them pass any resolution to take out a loan. Did you?
Nope.
No. Let's keep going.
So we've been working with the county to estimate the impact of issuing these bonds. First, we will be issuing the maximum amount, as I mentioned earlier, of $110 million in order to make up the project cost.
Now, I'm going to take issue with these numbers immediately before we even continue, Larry, because what they're spelling out here they're not actual numbers. They don't know what the yield on the bond is going to be. They don't know how long we're going to be financing it for. So what they should be doing is worst case scenario, again, for the taxpayers, so that we can begin to understand what we're on the hook for. But instead, they're taking a 30-year bond when the legislation specifically allows them 40 years, and they're taking what they call an average 5% bond yield. Let's talk about that 5% real quick. Last go around, they said it was going to be 3.5%, right?
And there's a reason for this.
It was either 3 or 3.5%, they said last time. And I said there's absolutely no way that this county maxing out its credit the way it is going to get 3.5%. And so I based my numbers on a worst case scenario, 7%. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And it came out to about $350 million total. Mm-hmm. That was over 20 years at the time. This time we're looking at, they say 5%, which by the way is AA1 rated, and they made a big deal about how how Moody's had bumped up their bond rating AA1. What do we know about Moody's bond ratings, Larry? They're a scam.
They're a scam. They're not real. They're as valid as these pretend awards that they hand out.
Yeah, they're a scam. Here's the thing. Of course they're going to rate them AA1 rated. Of course they are, because that's how they make the most money off of them. It has nothing to do with the credit worthiness of the municipality. Where's that? There's a documentary right now, Larry. Where is it? It's on Netflix or something.
Mm-hmm.
There's a documentary on Netflix that goes into these municipal bonds. Well, they're not municipal bonds; these revenue bonds.
And AJC just did an article about it also. And the entities that do these are the municipalities and counties, the local governments.
Yeah.
And do you know the reason that they do these bonds? Because they get to circumvent rules and regulations that are set forward by banking industry and legislatures.
Yeah.
They get to bypass rules, Alex.
Yeah.
And you do know, okay, that there is at least a 2% difference if you get a general obligation bond versus a revenue bond.
Sure.
2%. There's a 2% difference. So we could really get a 5% if they did a general obligation. I don't think they're going to get a 5% on this revenue bond.
My prediction is we're going to be close to 7%. We're going to be close to 7% on this. Let's keep going.
And we're assuming 30-year bonds, which are typical, but also less than the 40-year cap that I mentioned earlier.
What is the debt, what I call debt to equity in a for-profit
So right
way,
now-
but what is the debt to equity now versus what will it be once these bonds are issued?
Oh,
How
yeah.
much debt?
Yeah, so
not,
we'll give you
not dollar-wise, but percentage-wise.
Percent-wise.
Yeah, so the number I always, as a percentage of the budget, of the annual operating budget, right now it's about 2%.
2%.
Not quite 2%.
Okay, and this would make
Once
it
this is done, it will peak at probably 7.5% to 8%.
Probably. Again, there's a lot of guesswork going on here because at the end of the day, they don't have a clue. They don't know. First of all, they don't know what it's going to cost. They don't know how much it's going to cost us because the cost of the bond and all these taking money out of the SPLOST, 10 million here, 10 million there, the cost of infrastructure, we don't know what that's going to be, the cost of furnishing and equipping the entire facilities, we don't know what that's going to cost. There's a lot that we don't know right now, including what the bond is going to cost us, how long we're going to be paying it off for, and how much at the end of the day, the total cost to the taxpayers is going to be. It's going to be $300 to $350, if not more, $1 million at the end of the day after interest for debt service, Larry. That's what this is going to cost us for a project that they said, oh, it's $110 million. Now, Donald Murphy there, Mr. Murphy, tried his hardest to get an answer to that question, and he never could. He never did. The guy said, "Oh, probably it'll max out at 7.5, 7.5, 8%, probably." But they don't know because they haven't. I don't
But
think
he's
they're
saying, but Al,
prepared.
just think about the number that he said. He said right now it's at 2%, and he was talking about 7.5. That's 6% increase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is a 6%. And I'll tell you, Alex, I think the debt's higher than 2% right now.
Yeah, let's talk about debt real quick because somebody asked last night, and he said we had 8 million. I got an email earlier today, and somebody was asking, "Do you think what the debt is?" I think we know what the debt is because back in January when they did their PFA presentation, they listed the outstanding county debt, and it was 64.5 of bond debt at least, and it's 64.5 million water and sewer and 8.5 million stormwater bonds. And I'm assuming the 8 million that he's talking about was what was 8.5 million at the beginning of the year for those stormwater bonds. But let's not forget, there's also the 65 million in water and sewer.
Which they conveniently left out.
They forgot to mention that last night, didn't they?
But you know, even though those are bonds that are covered by revenue that the water and sewer, are financing, we have to remember one thing. That commingled money they talk about and that fund balance that they are so proud of, that water and sewer is part of that commingled funds, Alex.
Yeah. I would ask anyone, send an email to the county and ask them to provide you an accounting of their fund balance, because we did that once before. And you remember $20 million was missing?
Yeah, and it wasn't really missing.
No, it wasn't. It's just the way they do their accounting.
But it comes up to this. I can ask tomorrow for a funds balance.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the funds balance on the 13th, right?
Yeah.
And then I can say, give me the fund balance on the 22nd. They're going to be two different numbers.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a different amount of money that's in the account each day.
And
The
Rosalind
fund balance is going to fluctuate because money in and out.
And Rosalind Miller sent me numbers from 2 separate years, and there was a $20 million deficiency. And so my question was, Oz, where's my $20 million?
Because that was back in the day when they kept trying to say it was a savings account.
Yeah,
remember?
they tried. They always referred to it as our reserve fund. It's not a reserve fund. It's just your bank balance at the end of the day. It's after balancing your checkbook. It's all in a single, it may be a spread over a few different accounts. It's all commingled. There is no reserve. Fund balance is just another name for saying your general balance. Listen, this $110 million project, they've already bumped up to $140 million. An extra $20 million from SPLOST right now, and $10 million from the general fund. There's $140. But there are costs they still don't know. They don't know what infrastructure costs are going to be. Dealing with Milstead is going to be an additional cost. There's
Alex, let's talk about something real quick. Okay, the only set aside money that was specified in this past SPLOST was that $19 million. None of the other money actually has a budget associated with it.
right.
So they can actually shift any of that money any way they want, because we the citizens, which you and I didn't, we voted against it. Because we let the Rockdale voter led an effort, but there's no, we didn't vote for any of that money to be allocated other than that $19 million. So they can actually shift more of that money if they want to. And people tell me, well, they can't do it. And I say, well, yes, they can.
Well, and look at the way they rewrote the SPLOST this time around.
Yeah.
They didn't specify projects. They can take any amount of SPLOST money and use it for anything they want.
That's what I'm talking about with the SPLOST.
Yeah.
That the only thing that was specified was the $19 million to go to the courthouse thing, Alex.
Mhm.
The rest of the money, and I think from what I've heard from people that are in the SPLOST, Alex, do you know how much money they're projecting to do in the SPLOST this time? 50 million bucks.
Right. This is the Voices for Rockdale just posted. This is the research I did back in 2018 and how I came up with the 140 million. And that's why I said this is the reason they're only going after 140 million, because they're limited by state law. It limits the amount of money they can borrow. Well, we're currently sitting on debt. We currently have bond debt, and like I said, I haven't done the research this time around, but I'll guarantee you that
The
110 million is the statutory limit that they are allowed to borrow. And I would challenge the county to prove me wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I feel pretty safe in betting that that is the statutory limit within the bounds of that 10% of the assessed value of all taxable property. I will guarantee you that's where that 110 came from. But Oz wanted his 140, so they came up with other ways to do it. And that 140 is rapidly going to balloon to closer to 200 million in hard costs at the end of the day. Because when have you ever seen a government construction project that came in on budget?
Never. Well, they were talking about the escalators and everything that they built in. This last 3 years, it's been difficult with escalators, right? So I mentioned last night that we had escalators built in around 13%. Usually 13% escalators, dude, that's gold, right? But my cost the last 35%, right? 13% didn't cover 35%. So we were creative and did other cuts and different things. We were able to make cuts that the government will never make. The county will never make the kind of cuts that we were profitable the last 3 years, Alex, our business, very profitable, because we have the ability to go in and do these things that the government will refuse to do. They won't do it. They won't make hard decisions, right? So they are going to have overruns, and a lot of the overruns are going to be they're not going to be able to anticipate material cost fluctuations in just shipping. And I mean, Alex, you and I both know when they start building up in Old Town, if anybody's ever done a major project, a construction yard, a construction yard, you need a lot of space for a construction yard. Alex, is there any space for a construction yard up in Old Town?
I mean, it's going to be tough to pull it off, and they're going to have to obviously phase it to make it work. But phasing it is going to add to the time and the cost of doing so.
Don't you see a lot of shutdown of?
Oh yeah, it's going to be a lot of.
They're going to shut a lot of roads in the daytime to bring trucks in.
Yeah,
and to
a lot
unload,
of.
There's going to be a lot of. There's going to be a lot of disruption.
Yeah, a lot of disruption.
I mean, how do you see existing businesses in Old Town surviving over a 3-year construction project?
I think it's going to be difficult for them. I think it's going to be difficult for existing business in Old Town, and I hope it's worth it. At the end of the day, I hope it's worth it. It's not going to be worth it to the taxpayers. We're going to be paying this for generations. And quite frankly, if it ever gets paid off, because they were already talking about refinancing options.
They were talking about refinancing in 10 years. You heard that, right?
Yeah. They're planning on dealing with this the same way they dealt with the water department's bonds, just continually refinancing them, continually taking on new debt. And we're going to be paying for this for a lifetime.
Well, let's just look at this. We're going to have the $110 million debt. That's happening. We're going to get the 110.
Yeah,
so, and we've got those mills that have already been allocated to pay that $110 million.
Yep.
But we know that's not all they're going to need. You and I think they're going to need at least another $100 million. So they're not going to be able to finance that $100 million.
Correct.
Because they're already going to meet their credit limit.
Correct.
So what that means is they're going to take SPLOST monies, and then they're going to add additional millages to you and I, and we are going to be paying big time property taxes here in the next few years. Yep. In 5 years, guys, let me tell you, and I talk about this all the time, Alex, do I not? I talk about the most vulnerable in this County being taxed out of home ownership,
Yeah.
it's going to go beyond seniors that are going to get taxed out of home ownership. What we refer to as middle income people won't be able to own homes in Rockdale County.
Yeah.
Because of tax bills.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, it's going to be different. It's going to be difficult. Wasn't it the first 2 years, Bill? I thought he said it was interest only payments on the first 2 years.
First 2 years is what
Yeah.
they said.
Listen, I appreciate that the members of the PFA, Donald Murphy, the lady there who used to be a school board member, I forget her name at this point. I appreciate that they're looking at cutting costs, but the time for cutting costs is long gone, right?
Alex,
I mean, Donald.
Alex, at the end of the day, the only person that voted no was Donald Murphy.
Yeah.
Some of those other people asked them tough questions, but then even in their little comments, they point blank said no matter what, they were going to approve it. So
Right.
I personally, and this is my thing, right? Those individuals were handpicked to be on that board for a certain reason, because they were going to say yes.
Well, let me make my point here. I appreciate them acting as responsible stewards of the taxpayers' money, but the time for that has passed. This is a done deal at this point, and we'll talk about some maneuvers that may be made in a minute, Larry. But as of right now, this is a done deal, and the PFA's only job here is to issue the debt and handle the service of payments of the debt. The opportunity to do something about it would have been the courthouse committee, and if I'm not mistaken, Donald Murphy was on the courthouse committee. He was a member of Courthouse Committee 2, I should say. Their opportunity to cut costs was right there. Their opportunity to tell the county, we can't approve this, it costs too much money, especially when there's this land over at Parker Road and we can develop it for $30 million. How can we, in good conscience, pass this when that opportunity is staring us in the face? But they chose to pass this.
Well, Alex,
the courthouse committee chose to move forward with this. So it is a done deal. We are on the hook for $110 million in bond debt. We're on the hook for the $20 million that they've taken from the SPLOST. We're on the hook for the $10 million that they say they've already collected from the taxpayers. We're on the hook for whatever infrastructure costs they run into, because once they start this project, they're going to have to finish it. And they're going to have to come up with the revenue somewhere, somehow, in order to finish this project, no matter what the final cost is. And we're on the hook for it. There's nothing we can do. Or is there something we can do, Larry?
Well, Alex, we've got people running for office, right, that say that they're not for this. And the only way to do something is to delay the bond process. If you delay the funding, you delay the project. And you would hope to be able to delay the bond process so that these other individuals could possibly win election and then stop this project. But this is the thing with me, right? I don't know if the people that were running for office are sincere about stopping the project, because I think secretly some of them may be hoping that the project go ahead and happens so they don't have to deal with it. I intend to pull a maneuver. I mean, I intend to actually go in and I'm not going to talk about the angles. I started to last night, and I'm glad my time ran out. But I'm actually going to go there and sign on to the when they go to validate the bonds in front of the Superior Court. Going to have an attorney there, and we're going to have a couple of reasons why we object to the bonds.
Yeah. But what use is that going to be when they're already talking about demoing buildings in January? I heard this morning, as well as future demo and by January.
Yeah. And that's what, that's the thing about it, Al. It's like, they're talking about demoing some buildings, and that would be what would, if we are successful and are able to delay the bond process for a year, that puts us into next year, right? It puts us into where these individuals would not be in office. I think it would be hard at that point to move forward with it. You could probably get it delayed again, saying you got new people coming into office. And, I think it would put those new people, if they were new people, in a very interesting situation, because I don't think they really think they're going to be in that situation. I think they're hoping it's a done deal, because I don't know if they're really against it.
Yeah. Now, Bill says they're using SPLOST money to do the demo, but what are they using to rebuild is the question, Bill.
Nothing.
And when are they planning? If or when? Let's assume the rest of this project falls apart and they've used SPLOST money to demo these existing buildings. What happens then? Well, then we've got to build. We're in a position where we have to spend money and build something. What they're doing is future proofing themselves. They're making sure that no matter what happens, whoever is on that committee is in the position where, well, shit, we have to do this now.
Well, Alex, this is the thing. You remember Sue Sanders said something very telling last night. She said, we learned a lot of things since 2017.
Yeah.
And she said, one of the things we learned is who we need to put on committees. She said that. That came out of her mouth, right?
Yeah.
So that tells you that courthouse committee that they put together, which had the sheriff, a couple of judges, representative of the district attorney. I mean, you had a committee that was, of course, they were going to approve their own facility.
Hold on a second. So when Bill Campbell said they're using SPLOST money to do the demo, he's talking about the $20 million that they've already taken that was supposed to have been earmarked to refurbish the courthouse. And they're using that money for other purposes.
Well, they could also be using some of the 10 million, and they could be using general fund money. Remember, Alex, the key thing they said, the money is commingled.
It's commingled, man.
So what money are they using, right?
It's commingled.
It's commingled.
Current mismanagement of funds.
Our finance director right there.
Because even the water and sewer authority's money, it's in the same thing. It's commingled. So there's no distinction between any of this money other than what a ledger says. Let me ask you a question, Alex. Do you think on any given day, if we would say, okay, now your ledger says this, now go divide this money up and make that ledger balance, you think they could actually balance those ledgers with real money?
No.
No.
Of course they couldn't.
No.
Current mismanagement of funds.
And that's why.
I mean, guys, this is going to be a $200 to $220 million project.
We know
$110 million is going to be borrowed from bonds. They've already got 20 million and then 10 million, right? So, they've got $130 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to need another 70, 80, 90 million dollars.
Yep.
They are going to raise your taxes because they're not going to be able to borrow it because they're going to be tapped out. So it's got to be cash. And where can they get that kind of cash? They get it from you, the homeowners.
Yeah.
The homeowners and building owners of Rockdale County.
And and let's make it clear. That's the reason they're AA1 rated bonds. That's the only reason, because that money is guaranteed. That's a AA rated revenue bond doesn't mean a damn thing, because that revenue is guaranteed, backed by the Rockdale County homeowner. That's what it's backed by. Now, that, by the way, raises one other issue, and I'm going to mention this because I haven't been on to talk about this at all. Development here in Rockdale.
Oh.
As of right now, the only way to alleviate some of this burden on existing taxpayers is to allow more development in Rockdale. And in Rockdale, that means residential development, right? We're not going to get big industry moving to Rockdale.
It means high density housing.
It means residential.
Yeah,
It means
residential-
increasing. It means
Yes.
increasing the tax digest and adding to the tax base so that this debt burden gets spread out among more people. But here in Rockdale, we have a habit of opposing every single damn thing that comes down the pike. And the next time a developer wants to come and invest in Rockdale, maybe consider the benefit to you rather than simply all the negatives. And I get the negatives. I understand why people have this immediate reaction to it, but we've got to with this amount of debt hanging over our heads, we now have to think about the future. There is economists are giving Georgia a 3 times greater than normal chance of dipping into recession next year. 3 times greater than normal. That is going to decimate your home values here in Rockdale. But your taxes won't be affected because they can't at this point. Because
So they'll just raise the real millage rate so you're paying the same amount.
Your homes are now the equity that is backing this debt. And so the government is going to have to collect from you exactly what they need to collect from you to service the debt, regardless of the value of your home. So that means if your home values go down, you're not going to see a reduction in taxes like you would in normal times. You're going to see an increase in the millage rate to continue revenue income, the revenue at the same level that it has been, because now they have to service this debt. There is no option for default here.
Well, Alex, and this is the thing about it, you just don't have the county doing this. You have the city and the Board of Education that are all gouging at this property. So you've got 3 entities that just every year keep coming back. And, when you add all of them up, it's a minimum of 30.
Yeah.
It's anywhere from 30 to 50% every year that the increase comes. And I don't see it ending.
No, it's not going to end. It's not going to end. This is
this year was a very unique year, Alex, because we had that one-time tax credit from the governor, from the state. So you had that come in, and then the county come in with their 100% thing with the host or whatever, which that did lower. But next year, you're not going to get that host thing.
correct.
It's not going to happen. You're not going to get that $500 credit from the governor's office,
Correct.
right? So next year is the year you actually feel this year's tax increase and next year's.
Yeah.
You're going to feel 2 years in one time.
Yeah, it's going to be.
You're not going to get next year's going to hurt.
Yeah, next year will be double what you paid this year, at least.
It's going to hurt.
It will be double what you paid this year without all the credits. And it's going to be like that every year, and it's going to increase every single year now for the rest of our time here in Rockdale. I hate to say it, but I think our retirement years here in Rockdale, I don't see how they can be fulfilling years.
Alex, I'm going to tell you what. If you're in your late 60s and you don't have all your debt paid, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
If you still owe a mortgage when you stop working, you are in trouble if you live in Rockdale County.
Yeah, I think so. Unless you're, one of the super wealthy.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're just a normal person that plans on retiring, I don't know if you'll be able to retire and live in Rockdale County.
I feel for these people that bought their homes within the last few years, where they're paying double actual market value. And when the recession hits, the homes are their equity is slashed, right? Their $300,000 home is suddenly worth $150,000, and yet they're being taxed on it like it's still a $300,000 home.
Mm-hmm.
That's who I feel for, because it's coming, and it's going to hurt Rockdale County. And it's because this entire thing has been mismanaged. They say this isn't about wants, it's about needs. Well, then, quite frankly, their needs are based purely on greed, because what they're asking for here is just greedy. When there was a perfectly viable option, I put together a land plan for a perfectly viable option at Parker Road that would have come in at under $30 million. Could have all been financed through SPLOST, and that included everything. That was the building, infrastructure work that was there. Larry priced the infrastructure. I worked out everything else. Less than 30 million, and you could have made it a really beautiful place for 35 to 40.
Alex, and you actually designed it that after that SPLOS that you could have actually built onto the facility in another SPLOS.
Yeah.
It was actually designed that it was expandable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That, this was the starter thing. And, let's do this with this SPLOS. And then and let's be real, Alex, that was when we had the old SPLOS, right? So we were actually into the new SPLOS. That was back in 18. If we'd actually did that plan, then right now we could have already had that built. And then this new SPLOS, this 20, 30 million more dollars that, taking that added on to it, no problem. We wouldn't be here with this if we would have had good fiscal management.
Yeah. I used my contacts. We got all the prices together. I prepared the land plan, had a survey, carved out a lease parcel so that Restoration Storehouse remained. Even left Restoration Storehouse there to honor that deal. And the county said, no, it's off the table. They initially tried to say, well, we can't develop there because there's required retention. No such damn thing. No such thing as required. There's a natural detention pond on that property. There's actually 2 natural detention ponds on that property right there. What they were they thought they were talking to somebody who didn't know what they were talking about is what happened. And I questioned them on it and they backed down. But they had no interest in ever being responsible and using that land. This was always planned to be downtown. It was always planned to cost at least $140 million. And they always intended to do an end run around the voters to get this done. That's exactly what they've done. And Larry, I hope that whatever maneuvers you have up your sleeve are able to at least delay the inevitable.
Well, this is the thing, Al. I mean, I think some people running for office need to be asked some hard questions.
What are they? The first question being, what are you willing to do to shut this down?
Yeah, but they need to be asked some hard questions, and that's it. Was if you're elected and this is tabled until you take office, what would you do?
Yeah,
and I mean, and it needs to be a sincere, legitimate answer, not a dance around answer.
Yeah,
I just tell you, I mean, and for a project that's basically a done deal, I was surprised at the dancing the county was still doing last night.
Oh yeah.
I was surprised. I didn't think, why dance? Why dance anymore? You've already got it, right?
Right.
Oh, you got that up? Yeah.
Yeah. That's the land plan I put together that would have provided 140,000 square feet. What they're talking about now is, less than the 140. I believe. Go back to Sue Sanders' presentation earlier in this video, and you'll see the square footage.
Well, Al, this thing about you relocate those judicial to Parker Road under your plan, and you would have been able to renovate the courthouse for the administrative portion, right?
Mhm.
So you know, I mean, and
Well,
you would-
and the thing is that building it's only limited by height restrictions. It could have gone another story. It could have been 210,000 square feet for another, less than $10 million. It could have been double the square footage they're talking about for a total of $40 million. And they're talking now about half the square footage for $140 million. At minimum, bare minimum, 140 million. That doesn't even include debt service.
well, I mean, I think they actually have some real plans this time. As we were called last time, Alex, remember they had a concept drawing and they didn't actually have any plans.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I mean,
Yeah.
they had a concept drawing, no plans. So they just borrowed 140 because that's what they wanted, it's all they could borrow.
Mm-hmm.
And they really didn't know what they were going to do. They really did.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. We're in it now. We're in it. This is from my perspective, this is absent any legal wranglings that may take place. We're in this now. The PFA, they can try to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, but that's beyond the scope of their authority. This now comes down to the project manager, and that's Sue Sanders. And unfortunately, Sue Sanders doesn't know what this is going to cost.
No, she said it last night she point blank said, well, we don't know.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Alex, and I'm going to be, I'm not as optimistic about this as you. You said, that they're acting in the best interest, and I purely think, and I'm taking the word literal, I think they are acting. I don't think there's anybody sincere on that board, okay? Because they're going to vote yes. They may ask those questions, and I think they're asking questions just for the surface appearance. But at the end of the day, they all said, well, we're going to vote for it no matter what.
I mean, I don't know. At the very least, Donald Murphy voted against moving forward last night.
Yeah, Donald voted again. I mean, but that spoke volumes. The rest of them asked questions, but then in their comments said, this has got to move forward. We're voting yes.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I don't know any of these people. I don't think I've ever met. I may have met Donald Murphy possibly once or bumped into him at a public meeting of some kind. Because he certainly looked familiar to me. I don't believe I've ever met any of the other members, and I'm not going to judge them or cast aspersions on them simply because I don't know them. Their intentions seemed genuine to me last night. I think they had some good questions. I think they had the wrong questions, but that's because none of them, I don't believe, work in this industry.
Well,
right?
right. And then the guy who's the judge, who's the chair, he said, I thought people would bring up some different arguments. It was the same arguments. Well, just because something's the same doesn't mean it's not the right argument.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the right objections that were brought up again last night, which have always been the correct objections.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a little bit. He was a little condescending with that.
Yeah, I mean, I was asking questions in the chat, hoping that somebody on the PFA was watching the Facebook chat, would see the questions and would pose them themselves. Because there were some relevant questions that needed to be asked last night that didn't get asked, and quite frankly, I think the people they're presenting, I think they got off pretty easy last night, and they were able to slide on a lot of things.
I think that was one of the worst presentations I've seen the county make. They're usually a lot slicker.
Yeah, it was not good.
That was a terrible presentation. They're usually a lot slicker. When they were just awful.
When you begin your presentation and in the first 10 minutes you say, I don't know what this costs.
And we're leaving all these blank because we don't know what they cost, right? We're leaving all this blank because we don't know.
But go ahead and sign it anyway. Sign the papers anyway. Leave it blank. Sign the papers. We're all good.
And then this judge, and I can understand why he's an ex-judge, but then this judge, well, he has to sign blank papers all the time, and I think, oh my God,
Yeah.
He pulled that out of his ass.
Yeah. Now, in fairness, what they voted for last night doesn't actually commit us to anything. I mean, we're don't get me wrong, we're in this regardless. This is going to take place.
No, I disagree with that. It does commit us.
It commits us to some cost for actually pursuing the bond at this point.
Well, it commit with them doing this, and when they go to that Superior Court judge in 3 weeks, if she approves that, then it's a done deal. That's actually the approval. Because in this, you heard them that when they come back, it's just a formality.
But it has they at least have to sign off on it.
Yeah, it's a
when
formality.
It comes back.
Yeah.
Well, it's of course the county's going to paint it as a formality. Doesn't mean the PFA have to sign off on it. They can say no. These terms are not acceptable.
That's not going to happen. They're going to sign off.
We'll see. I imagine it will be. Listen, it's a done deal. It's going to get signed off on at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, they learned lessons since 2017.
Yeah,
they learned. Alex,
they learned who to put on the boards.
Committee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and see what happens.
I'm gonna not because the last person we gave the benefit of the doubt to was Terry Oates. You see how that played out.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think we're looking at 7% on those bonds, at least. And that's if we're able to do it now before this county gets sucked into a recession.
Well, Alex, they were pushing last night hard, right? Yeah. There's a reason they want this done real quick. They've got something lined out they know they can get right now, and if they don't get it by January, they feel they can't even get it.
Yeah,
I think the delay may screw them.
Yep. But at the end of the day, the true cost of this is coming to light. It's not $110 million. It's not even $140 million. It goes even beyond that. They don't know how much beyond that, but they've told us it goes beyond that. And when we get new numbers in January, then the Board of Commissioners is going to have to figure out how to fund that. And then we have the option of taking more from the SPLOST if we need to. And it's going to be on and on and on and on.
And we have the option of charging more meals.
Yeah.
That's what they said.
On and on and on and on until we're at, 150, 200, well, $200 million. We're at over 140. 200 million, I think, is going to be an easy reach for this, especially when you look at how it's been managed so far. In the private sector, you would have at least estimates for these costs.
Yeah, you would. You would have estimates.
You wouldn't even consider going to a financier without estimates. Wouldn't even consider it.
You would have all your numbers.
But these guys, but these guys were able to go in front of that board last night and say, "Oh yeah, we don't know what that's going to cost. It's not included, but we don't know what it's going to cost."
They went before that board last night for what that board's purpose was. Just sign off on the 110 and get out of the way. Once you do that, you're done. We don't need you anymore.
And what I don't know the guy's name. What he said was, I can tell you this, we will not be coming back to you for more money. Well, yeah, because you can't. You can't. Their authority is 110 million. Of course you're not coming back to them for more money.
Can I tell you something now? They'll never reappoint anybody else to the board.
Right.
Well, you know what I mean?
Right.
Why? Why would they?
Why would they? Yeah. Why would they? Once it's signed off on, they'll never have another meeting. If anybody resigns, they'll never be replaced.
Well, they've got dates. All those people. I mean, they have. I mean, the one that the DA appointed is only good till August, right? then some of them are the year after that, and all of them's term expires by 25. That as they come off, nobody else is going on, and nobody's getting reappointed. That's a done deal. There's no need to have the board.
Clayton says, I feel that it's going to hamstring us financially. Really? Yeah. Yeah, it's going to hamstring us financially. We're screwed, man. That the county will be living in the lap of luxury. Us, the taxpayers, we're screwed on this deal. We are, our homes are at risk now for this deal, is what it boils down to. Our homes are the capital backing this deal. And that's a scary position for your elected officials to put us in. All right.
That's where we are, Alex.
Yeah, that's where we are. All right, Larry, I'm going to wrap this up. Maybe I'll be back in a year. In the meantime, you can keep up with.
This is what I want, Alex. When I win my election,
go on
to be the next school board member.
Yep.
Then you'll host a show and talk to me about being the new elected school board member.
I'm gonna hold your damn feet over the fire if you're on the school board, son.
Well, dude, I welcome it.
I'm gonna ask you, where's my damn money?
And you know what? And I'm gonna find out where the money's at.
Where's my money? I have no kids. Here's my preemptively. Here's my first comment to school board member Larry Cox. I have no kids, yet I pay the same amount of school taxes as a family with 3 kids. Why is that? Why is that? Where's my money, Larry?
Where's it going? How's it being spent, right?
I'll gladly pay my 1 share, but if you have 3 kids, you better be paying 3 shares. That's my position, and I stand by it, and I don't care what anybody thinks. Make people pay for the number of kids they have utilizing the system. So now you know what our interview is going to be like when you get elected to the school board.
Hey, I'm ready for it now. I'm already going to be a controversial member if I'm elected.
Yeah, well, good luck, man. When is that anyway?
It's the May primary. Yeah, the May primary, because it's a nonpartisan. That is the general for.
Okay.
May 21st will be. That's the day. It's done.
So the top 2 don't go on to November. Then it's handled right there and then.
Let's just say there's 3 people running in your race, and you have to have a runoff. You have the runoff in July. And call it a day.
All right. Well, good luck with that, future school board member Larry Cox. And
Danielle keeps voting for me up there where she lives, so I might as well run here again. And
no, she votes for Tucker Cox. She doesn't vote for Larry Cox. No, she does. She writes in your name.
Well, but this thing about it, you do know Tucker Cox got about 50 votes for a judge here a couple of years ago.
Did he really?
Yeah, he really did. We ran. Yeah. He had write-in at about 50 votes. So
I think that's more votes than Phyllis Hatcher got for. I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, let's quit.
I'm going to stop there. Yeah. All right. Maybe I'll be back in a year. Maybe I'll be back if and when Larry gets elected. In the meantime, you can keep up with the weekly shenanigans in Rockdale over on Larry's channel this week from Rockdale. I appreciate you coming on tonight, Larry. It's always a lot of fun having you on.
I had a good time, Al.
Yeah, man. And thank you, everyone that tuned in. We appreciate your time. And if you want to, share this thing. Share it from my page. Share it from Larry's. I believe it's on both pages. And if you don't do that, talk to your friends and neighbors and let them know what is in store for the taxpayers of Rockdale. And more importantly, let them know how this administration has lied to them, has gaslit them, has fed misinformation, all the things that Oz Nesbitt is fond of complaining about. This Board of Commissioners and this administration have been doing from day one. This was their plan all along was to spend at least $140 million on this nonsense, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They lied to you, they lied to me, and they can be held accountable at the ballot box.
Yep, I agree.
Yep. All right, guys. Appreciate it. Larry, thank you very much, man. See you next time.
Got
Take
it.
care,
Thanks.
guys. Bye.